a kind of an interesting way of doing a little tutorial. What I'm going to do tonight, I think, is Lynn had asked me to take some of the images that I've done in the past and show what I shot in the camera. And then after evaluating the image, if I saw any merit to it at all, to take a mediocre image and then turn it into something that could get a high score or win an award or whatever. And so that's what I did. Is I've got about 5 or 6 images that I can work with here on Photoshop. I'm going to do it on Photoshop because that's the program I work with all the time. But I don't want to get into all the details of exactly how I'm doing something. I mean, I can explain it, but I think more to the point, what I'm doing, so that you can see how a average, ordinary picture can be turned into something that looks decent. Most of the pictures I take, as far as I'm concerned, are pretty average and ordinary, but when I work them and massage them in Photoshop, I'm able to get nice looking pictures. And I think anybody who does work with Photoshop, or anybody who recognizes that effect or that treatment knows that and does that. But I'm going to take the images from the beginning out of the camera and then taking it to its final, the way it would look when I would present it in critiquing or in competition. So with that in mind, and if you want to ask questions, that's fine. But again, I don't know how many of you work with Photoshop, and everything that I'm doing here, you can do with most imaging programs. It's just the way to go about doing it might be a little different. Also, I want to mention that if you want to know a particular technique, like how do I make my clouds darker or more brilliant, or how do I select or clone or burn and dodge and all that kind of thing, there are tutorials on YouTube. I mean, there's a gazillion of them specifically for Photoshop, and now for some of the other imaging software too. So you can go on YouTube and type how to burn and dodge in Photoshop, and then you would list the Photoshop version that you happen to have. I stopped upgrading my Photoshop at CS6 because I didn't want to get into subscriptions and paying monthly fees and all that. Because Photoshop CS6, there's enough there to do anything you really want to do. And so I've been very pleased with CS6, and I'm just sticking with it until something else might light my wick. But there is one program that I saw advertised, and I checked it out, and it was relatively inexpensive. I think it's like $50 or $60, and it's called InPixio Studio Pro. And that one has a lot of features that Photoshop has. And from what I could tell by looking at it, it's pretty easy to clone and to cut images out and replace backgrounds and do all kinds of things to buff up your images. So anyway.
Tony, before you go ahead, I'm going to put the mute on for everybody.
Okay.
And you, if you want to ask a question, you can either click on the mute and take it off, or you can just press your space bar and hold it down and talk. So
Okay.
I'll put it on because I hear some background noise. But remember the space bar or click the thing off.
Okay. Very good. And I guess I click my share screen button here. Mm-hmm. And I select the screen that I want to share.
Yeah, and you may need to turn your mute off too.
I think Tony just got muted.
Yeah, let me see. Can you unmute, Tony?
There, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes,
Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
yes, I think so.
Okay.
See it.
Okay, excellent. All right. Again, this is in Photoshop CS6. Now this picture that I got, I think Donna and Steve will recognize this beach. It's Estorils Beach. And I shot this with a cell phone. So I'm going to take a little crappy cell phone and I'm going to show you how, if you got the right light and you're shooting something that works with a cell phone, you can actually get some halfway decent images. Now, some of you might say, and some of you may have seen this picture before because I think I entered it in one of the critique nights, maybe last year. But anyway, this image, I like the image overall because I thought it has a lot of impact and drama and so forth. But there's some things that I think can be done to it to buff it up, to make it more dramatic, more interesting. And the first thing that comes to mind, well, before we even do that, I'm going to talk about cropping the image. This particular image is exactly as I shot it. And I don't really think it needs much cropping at all. I mean, if anything, maybe some of the foreground could be chopped, or maybe some of the clouds in the sky could be chopped and make the picture more, more panoramic in its look. But actually, I like the reflection in the water that you see down there. And I just like the overall feel of it. So I'm not going to crop anything on this particular one because I think it stands, it's okay the way it stands. Now, the first thing I want to do is do something with these clouds because the clouds are really dramatic. But as I recall, the clouds were even more spectacular and more interesting when I was there on the beach. And unfortunately, a cell phone does not have the capability of being able to pick up the extreme lighting from the sky down to the water down below in this area. It just can't do it. So now I think it was Lynn that asked if I would share using layers. I use layers for pretty much all of my work unless I'm in a real hurry and don't care much about what I'm doing, if it's just snapshot stuff. But layers, you can do what I'm going to show without using layers, but what's good about layers is it enables you to make changes in the future, and enables you to unselect it or unview it so that you can see what it looked like before you made the changes, and then you can see what it looks like after you made the changes. And the layers are going to show up over here where it says background in the lower right-hand corner of Photoshop. And like I say, most of the software programs for imaging allow you to work with layers. And layers are nothing more than like cellophane sheets of plastic where you stack them all on top of each other and each one's got a little effect that you did to the image. So I'm going to create a sky layer, or a layer that's going to be used for working the sky. So the first thing I do is, let's see here. I go to layers up here and I grab a new layer, click that, and I'm going to call it burn and dodge. Okay, and also to do that, you have to make some changes in here. And I don't want to go to too much detail on this, but I usually go to soft light and fill with soft light, and then click OK. And then that puts the layer right here. And I'm going to grab a brush, and I'm going to make sure that right here in the in this column on the far left, that these two boxes, that the top one is black. And you do that by just clicking the little box here, or you can click the little arrows which switch them between black and white. And what that does is it just enables me to start burning in the sky. And then I'm going to make my tool here is a big circle here, because that's the area size that I want to use to burn it in. And the hardness down here determines on how sharp the edges are going to be of my burned area. And usually I want it kind of soft so that so it's not real noticeable. But anyway, so if I come here and I start to, well, let's see, what do I have this at? Opacity is too dark. So you just kind of fill it in like this, and the clouds start to get nice and dark, and the sky gets a little bluer. And you just keep painting across the screen like this. And all of a sudden your clouds start getting really dramatic. And then I might run another pass over it and make it even darker and more dramatic. So it looks like it could be squall clouds. Okay, and there you go. Now you could keep going and going and going with this until it got really dark and really stormy. But just to look at this as to what it looked like before I did this, that's what it was before, and that's what it is now, before and now. So all of a sudden it becomes more dramatic. Let's take another pass at it and darken them up even more. Just paint across the sky. Okay, now if we unclick it, that's before, that's after. I mean, it's not much, but boy, you know, in my opinion, it makes it really pop. And you go, wow, you know, and this is again, this is the JPEG file on a cell phone. But so it just shows you that you can do this. Now, I don't recommend shooting pictures with cell phones or on JPEG. I think if you shoot with a RAW and you do it, you know, in a regular digital single lens reflex camera, you're going to get better results because you have more latitude to work with this. But in this case, with the burning and dodging, the JPEG file seems to work okay. It's not bad. Now, another thing that is interesting to me on this particular image is I notice I have people walking around back over here, and that can be a distraction. Can everybody see that?
Mhm.
You know, over there where the people are. So I'm going to take those people out. And in order to do that, I'm going to create another layer. And I'm going to call this clone. And it's right up here above. I'm actually going to put it below the burn and dodge. I'm going to move it down and put it just above the background. So it's right here. So the clone is here and the burn and dodge is right above it. It's not critical at this point, it doesn't really matter, but it just allows me to think a little clearer as far as what I'm doing and where it is. Anyway, so if we're going to clone this, I click the clone tool, which is right here over on the left, just below the little brush. And then I'm going to make the little cursor bigger. And about like that's good. And then I'm going to take the hardness and maybe move it right about here so it's not too soft on the edges. And I click away from it. And then come over here and I'm going to grab, let's see, that little area right there, and I'm going to come right here and okay, so why isn't it doing this? That's why. This should be at current layers and below. Okay. All right, so I go right here, grab this area, then come over here and clone them out. And the beach looks a little funky there, so let me see if I can fix that. I'll bring them back. Okay. I'm going to make the little circle a little bigger. That's a little better. I guess what I would do here now maybe is take some of the sand. Smooth it up. Yeah, it's pretty good. And now, there you go. So now you've taken the people out and there's no more distractions. Another thing that I saw in this is I like the reflections, but I kind of like to maybe lighten them up a little bit. So I go to the paintbrush again, like I did with the Burn and Dodge. Put this on the Burn and Dodge layer that I created. Maybe put the opacity somewhere around in here. If I don't like it, I can always increase it or decrease it or back it off. So just come in here and start lightening it up a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, I guess that's pretty good. There you go. So now you got the reflections are a little stronger. And then if I want to, I can vignette this because sometimes I finish it up vignetting it. So I would go to, usually I grab this circle here and I make sure my feathering is about 150 on it. And then I'll pull it across the screen, the marching ants as they call it, select a big area like this. And then center it up a little bit. Whoops. Okay. And then I hit the select button and invert it. And then pull up curves, because curves is a good way to do this vignetting. And then just, let's see. And it just kind of darkens the corners a little bit. You don't want to overdo it, but what that tends to do is draw your eye to your subjects. And there you end up with what I would call a finished image. Okay, so I don't think I do much more to this. I like it. So then what I'm going to do now is prepare it and size it, because the sizing in this could either be too small for the critiquing. So I got to make sure it's the right size. So by doing that, I go to image and go to image size. And where is it? Did this lock up on me?
Pop back up.
Okay, let's see if I got an image. Okay.
You're still on your mask, Tony.
Is that what it is?
I think you have to flatten the image.
You need to get off the mask.
Oh yeah, good idea, good idea. Right. Okay, layer. Won't let me flatten it either. That's weird.
Mask is
I
still
see.
active. Click on your curves layer or the one below it or something. You got to act.
Yeah, it won't. I'm clicking it right. I'm putting it right on any of these, and it's not moving. Okay, wait, there we go. Okay, now let's see if I can do it. No? Why is it gray? Well, it's not locked.
Try clicking on the background layer.
Okay. I'm doing that.
It's locked. I don't know.
I'm clicking the background layer. It's not doing anything.
Yeah, I think you're still selected on the mask.
Yeah, this one right here?
Yeah.
I see that, but it's not, I can't click off of it. And yet I can move the slider. And can I move this? No, that's locked. Well, I wonder if there's like a refresh. If there's a refresh for this.
Try Control Z and just back up a step and see what it does.
Okay. There's Control Z. I just did it and it's not doing anything. It won't let me select anything. Oh, well, let's do this. You've got the idea of the image, so let me close Photoshop here and reopen it. I can't even do that. Let's see. This isn't a Zoom problem, this is a computer problem. Or it's not an internet problem either. Let me unshare this and see if that changes things, and I'll reshare it in a second.
Tony, I think you're just too close to the equator.
Yeah. Okay, let's see here. Wow, why is it doing that? That's so weird. Okay, I'm going to close it. We're going to lose the work I did, but that's okay because I wanted to show you one more thing with this. Come on. Okay. I didn't close it. Okay, so
You're gonna have to do a forced quit.
yeah, I may have to do that. Let's see here. Yeah, why would I may have to do a reboot. So stand by, I'll be right back.
Did you try Control Alt Delete?
Yeah, I did, Control Alt Delete. And what it does is are you there? No.
Yeah.
Okay, what it does is it blanks out the screen, but that's all it does. And it's still there. See, and it's not. Okay, I'm gonna reboot. So I'll be right back.
I have no idea.
We've all had things like that, so sometimes it just goes that way.
So you can turn your sound on yourself there, your mute, if you want to talk.
Everybody,
Hey, Tim Lesser, I want to ask you a question. Why didn't he use any of the dodge and burn tools?
He did.
No, he didn't. He never selected dodge and burn. He just selected a paintbrush and he selected white and black.
Oh, that's
wondered
right.
that
Oh.
too.
That's because he had filled the layer with 50% gray. And so all he had to do was change the brush from white to black or vice versa
Yeah.
to darken
When I
and
do
lighten.
that, I fill it with 100% gray and I still use the dodge and burn. I don't ever have to fill, select the white or the black. I just wondered why it was that he might have done that. So,
I think he did the equivalent of that, but I agree with you, John. I just used dodge and burn, and that seems to
I
work
use
just
dodge and
fine.
burn too, but I did have a teacher that did it the way Tony was just doing it.
yeah.
You get the same result. And maybe it's just confusing to call it dodge and burn because you're not using those tools.
Tim Lesser, are you there? Do you hear me?
Yeah, I am.
By the way, the check's in the mail. We just got back from 2 weeks in Colorado, and I forgot to put it in there before we left.
Are you muted?
Now I think Tim's still muted. Tim, you're muted.
Oh, I just said
There we go.
we have a reprieve. We're not doing the limitation on the downloading till November, so
Oh, okay.
you're good.
Check's
Yeah,
in the
okay.
mail.
A comment about the question about the gray layer and the dodge and burn tool. In the past, I think the dodge and burn tool is better in the newer versions, but in the past, it sometimes just made things kind of a muddy gray. But when you use a 50% gray layer, the gray is neutral. And when you use a contrast mode like soft light or overlay, then the black will burn and the white will dodge. And you can make two separate layers if you want to, or just do them all on one. But the gray doesn't show. And you can actually make your dodge and burning heavier or lighter by making your brush a little bit gray or not.
So that's great.
Oh, that's it. But I think the dodge and burn tools on the newer versions of Photoshop work better. But I haven't used them much, so I don't really know.
Is that because you got used to doing it the better way with the when you had to? Is that
I'm
because
sorry,
you
what
got
was that,
used to
Lynn?
using? Is that because you got used to using the 50% gray?
Or are you doing it in Lightroom instead?
Well, how do you do it in Lightroom? Is that what you said?
Oh, I said, or are you doing it in Lightroom instead? Because now that I've got Lightroom, I'm doing more things in Lightroom and not using Photoshop hardly at all.
Yeah, you can do your dodging and burning in Lightroom using the adjustment brush
Mhm.
and darken and lighten your exposure. That
Yeah,
will
he
work.
didn't do anything today that you could not do in Lightroom.
Right. That's correct.
You said
Except the cloning is a lot better in Photoshop.
there's a
That's
lot of
correct.
things you can't do in Lightroom that you can do better in Photoshop. But yeah, it looks like Tony's back.
Hey, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, excellent. All right, let me pull up Photoshop again here. I haven't, let's see here.
Hey, Tim, I have a question for you. So would you switch it to white over black for dodging? Buddy?
Okay, let's see here. Oh, it saved it. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
And Tony, would you do any sharpening before you export or save it, especially because it was taken on your cell phone?
Here, wait a second. Let me put my glasses on. Yeah, that was what I was getting to. That was the next step was to take this image, because it looks like all my layers and everything are still there, so that's great. So we were going to layers, and we were going to flatten the image, which is then compresses them all together, which makes it easier then to size it. And resizing it for the camera club was, I'm going to keep it at the resolution of 72 DPI. And this is more of a horizontal, so was it 3840? 3840
Like 21
by
60.
2160, right? Okay, and I hit OK. And that resizes the image. Okay, now it's now the right size for the camera club critique night. The next thing is to sharpen it. So what I do is I go to filter, and I go down to sharpen, and then down to unsharp mask. And then this now, I can look at that. This is an enlargement of, what is it, 100%. So you can look at this, and if I put my mouse on the, my finger on the mouse, that is, and push the click button, it takes away the sharpening that is defaulted to. So you can see it sharpens up and it goes away and sharpens up and goes away. And so to do that, what you do is to evaluate it is I usually set my threshold at 4, and my radius is somewhere between 1 and 2, somewhere in this area. And then my sharpening, the amount of sharpening, I usually back off until I don't see any halos on the subject or any of the subjects. You know, if it looks, you can see it's soft there. That's the original image, and there's just a little bit sharpened, which is probably enough. Maybe just a little more sharpening here. And then if you want to look at the overall picture, if you release the preview button, you can look at the picture without sharpening. Like there it is without sharpening. And there it is with sharpening. Without and with. So that would probably be about enough sharpening right there. And hit OK, and we're good. And there it is ready for digital projection night or print night or whatever you're going to do with it. So if you're going to print it, you want to put your DPI at 300. But apart from that, 72 is fine. And this picture can be enlarged. I think this the sensor on this cell phone, it's a little $80 smartphone, and I think it's like 7 or 8 megapixels in size. It's nothing, but look what you can do with them. I mean, you can make billboards out of these. So it's amazing, you know, just by resizing and giving these images the pixels that it needs so that you can blow it up and not have it fall apart. It'll hold it together. So, but I'm not endorsing cell phones. All right, any questions on this image?
I have one, and that's about the sharpening still. Why did you sharpen it after you resized it instead of before?
Because if you sharpen it before and then you shrink it down to a smaller size, it may come across as over sharpened. And if you make it bigger than it was, it'll come across as under sharpened. So you decide what you're going to do. Now, I don't save it permanently. I mean, I make a copy. I do this as a save as. And then that way, I save it under another name, and the original image is still the way it was, the way I originally shot it. And then that way, because if I save it and it's a JPEG file like this, that's it. You know, the original is gone. It's become the new file that you saved. But if you shoot in RAW, you don't lose that RAW image. You know, that stays intact. So you got to be very careful when you do things like saving and cropping and all that kind of thing, because you can lose your original image if you're not saving it as under another name. So, but anyway, that's what can be done with this picture. It was a nice picture to look at, but I think now it's much more interesting than it was. Anybody disagree? No? Anybody want to fight about it?
Well, I got one question, Tony. What's the story behind this image? Why were these guys out there in the beach doing their kung fu or whatever it is?
Yeah, they were staying at the Pelicano, the Hotel Pelicano. You guys know that. You've been there. And they book it once a year, and then they it's a karate school that books it once a year for a week, and they go out and do their routines and practicing on the beach. And then spend the rest of the time swimming and enjoying the beach and whatever. It's a karate school that's it's a chain, as I recall. Part of them are in San Jose, and the rest of them come from the States. And so they convene here at this particular hotel on the beach.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So did you have a good sunset that night like we had?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, every night pretty much. It doesn't matter the time of year. The sunsets are amazing on this particular beach. So, okay. Let me close this. Now, the next image, let me pull it up here. Let's see, this one's just supposed to open up here. This one shouldn't be opening up in RAW, actually, but it is. Let's see, it's another JPEG cell phone picture. You know what, I'm gonna not even mess with this one. Let's see here. Okay. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a white-faced capuchin, and I posted him on Facebook this afternoon, the same image, but it looks a lot different than the one that got posted. Now I'm going to show you what I did with this one. If you'll notice, when I first look at this, and again, when you take the picture, that's the first step to what photography is all about. You're just capturing it, but rarely is the way you captured it ever satisfactory, complete. There's always something that the picture needs. And I look at this one, and in its state like this, We got problems with hotspots. You can see them are all through here, these little circles of confusion, they call them, these little hotspots poking through the leaves. You have this tree with all of this white stuff in here that's kind of a distraction. Makes your eye kind of look at that rather than the monkey. You see you've got more hot spots up here in the leaves. And so overall, it's a kind of a distraction from what this picture is supposed to be about. It's the monkey. Plus the monkey, you know, it's a horizontal image. And when I took the image, I didn't know whether I wanted a horizontal or a vertical or what. So I aimed it. He turned and looked in the angle that he's, the posing that he's doing there, if you want to call it a pose. He was only like that for maybe a second or two before he turned his head and moved on. So I just happened to catch it when he did that, which makes him look like he's posing. But in reality, he was on the make. Also with this image, let's see if I can make this a little bigger. If you notice, his eyes are like dead black. There's no real life to them. There might be some catch lights in there, but they're so small and so hardly noticeable that for all intents and purposes, there is no catch lights to it. So what did I do to fix this one? Now, I shot this one with a Canon 60D, and I shot it in RAW, which is the way you should shoot images. And let's see if I can back this off.
Hey, Tony, your audio just faded out.
How's this? Is it okay now?
No. Did you hit the thing under the mute button by any chance? The audio settings?
Is that better?
No.
Let's see this time. How's that? Is that any better?
It's getting better.
Hello? Hello, hello, hello?
That's
No?
better.
It's better.
Let's see. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Am I okay now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Technology. Okay. So what would I do with this image? Well, and looking at it, to me, it looks like it should probably be a vertical. So to crop it, I can either crop it here or crop it in Photoshop. This is camera raw. So either way, I don't think it matters all that much, but let's crop it here for the heck of it. Now notice he's looking this way to our left. So the breathing room on this side of the image does not need to be there. It can be a little bit tight to his face. This one you can open it up maybe a little bit more because he's looking off this way to the left. Up above, if I have it up here, I catch those hot spots, so I can crop it probably more like down around about here. And remember, this image is about the monkey and the rest of it is just props, you know, the tree and all that kind of thing. So in my opinion, that is. Okay, so to me, this would be a good crop for it. And then we click that, and there's the cropping for the monkey. Now, the temperature over here, I like to set it at 55 because 55 is daylight and 44 is what it defaulted to, is what the camera thought it was. And so I would tend to warm it up a little bit to 55, which is daylight. And you can see he gets on the warm side. And of course, depending on your screen, your computer, and to whether it's calibrated or not, it's going to determine how warm or how cool the image is going to look. But in any case, I mean, you can experiment with it. If you don't like it so warm, you can back it off and make it a little bluer, you know, somewhere in here. If you go too far to the right, of course, it's going to get too yellow. Yellow and blue are the opposites in the color wheel in photography. So I like it about 55. And then the exposure on everything here looks okay. The hot spots, you can go down to where it says highlights. And sometimes you can, like the fur on him is kind of blown out here and looking around and through here. So you can drop out the highlights a little bit and it'll bring a little bit of detail into the fur. About like so. The shadows are okay. The whites, okay. Don't need to do much with that. The blacks, if you want to bring in a little more detail in his fur, I guess you could mess with this a little bit. Clarity, that kind of gives a little bit of a contrasted look to it, a little more contrast. And the vibrance would buff up the colors. If you go too far or too back the other way, it goes kind of monochrome. But somewhere, you know, in there, if you don't want to overkill it, this looks pretty good, right about in there. I guess it didn't do much. Okay, so there's kind of an initial look to it, but it's still not done, at least as far as I'm concerned. So what I would do now, you can come up here and adjust these along the top. If you want to, mess with it some more. But generally speaking, I don't bother with it. I may, let's see. Yeah, just leave them alone. I mean, you can do it, but it's not a big deal. Okay, so now I'm going to open it in Photoshop, because this is where you can finish doing what you're doing on this image. And also, if you look at it, he's a little bit out of focus. He's slightly soft, and it might be me having a shaky grip with the camera. I don't know. Maybe I was moving the camera quickly to catch him, and I hadn't stopped the camera in my hands, and so it blurred him out a little bit, you know. And his eyes are kind of, don't look quite right. I mean, they're dead looking. Now there is a little catch light right there, slightly. So what I normally do, I take a look at this and I go, okay, well, let's see what I can do with that catch light. Maybe I can improve the catch light. So I'm going to create a layer, call it catch lights, or just call it catch. And I'm going to pick up soft light. Okay, so now I've got a new layer over here in the lower right-hand corner called catch. And I'm going to grab the paintbrush, and I'm going to make my cursor a lot smaller. And I'm going to see what my opacity is. It looks like it's about 40%. That's okay. I can work with that. So I'm going to go to that little catch light there, and I'm just going to work it a little bit and add a little more to it. If it's an overkill, then I back it off, maybe increase my, lower my opacity a little bit. Come in here and do it again. And I'm just working with what's already there. In the other eye, there really isn't any catch light here. I can see maybe a little hint of one right up in here. So maybe I'll put a little bit of a mark in there. Or something like that. Okay, now, his eyes are still pretty dark. So one of the things I can do to his eyes is lighten his eyes up. So I'll create another layer. Let's see. And I'll call this one eyes. And then I will, oops, hold on here. eyes. Soft light. Okay, now here I'm going to draw with the lasso tool. And I want my pixels to be like two pixels. And then I come in here, maybe I'll make them a little bit bigger so I can work with them. And then I want to make sure I have this box checked. And then I'm going to put an inside circle around the pupil. And again, I can barely make out the pupil, but it's going to be something like that. And I'm going to come over here and do the same thing with this eye. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I can't even see the pupil really in here, but I'm going to kind of guess what it is. Something like that. And then back it off. And then I'm going to use the levels tool. And I'm going to lighten them up. How's that?
Halloween.
But anyway, you can back it off a little bit and get it to where it looks natural. But now you can see his eyes. And then you can back him off. Now, this is after, and that's, let's see. There we go, it's before. That's after. So his eyes were there, but you just couldn't see him. So by lightening his eyes, because the camera just can't do it. It just can't pull his eyes out, but now you've got eyes there, and now he's more interesting to look at. Because whenever you look at wildlife or any kind of a creature, our tendency is to go right for the eye. We look at everything at their eyes first. And if the eyes are dull and dead, or there's nothing there, then the picture just somehow lacks. But if you've got some kind of a sparkle or some kind of brightness in the eyes, now you've got a monkey with catch lights in his eyes. Okay, now, the next thing that can be done on this is to do some cloning. Let's get rid of this here. So I'm going to make a layer. And I'm going to call it clone. And I'm going to grab the clone tool. Let's make sure that I turn them below. Got it, okay. And the opacity will be 100%. Make the little cursor bigger. Okay, that works. Grab some of this good bark down here. And then come over here and just start filling it in. And you end up with duplicates here. See this, you can see duplication in through here. So it's not a bad idea to kind of eliminate some of that too. Okay, so you've got pretty much, I mean, you could spend more time on this, I guess, and make it more even, but anyway, I've gotten rid of the white light areas in the bottom right-hand corner down in this area, getting rid of all of that. Another area to get rid of is these hot spots that are down here. And this is a little bit more of a challenge. So, well, let's see, let me, I'm gonna go back to the burn and dodge here. Let's see, this was a burn and dodge, okay. And we will darken it, this area here, these, the tree. So you just darken it up, something like that. And then down here in this area, let's see if we can go back to cloning and fill it in with something. So let's see. I guess we can grab some of this down here in the bottom. Okay. Oop. Okay, there we go. Sometimes if you do the opacity down a little bit, that also helps. Because then it doesn't cover it up completely. It still leaves some of those circles of confusion. Now this is not going to matter all that much as we do this, because what I'm going to do is vignette the image. Something like that. Okay, now to vignette the image, now before I do that, actually, I may want to work the levels here. It's the wrong ones. Let's see. Get a new layer. Levels. Working with the histogram a little bit because I don't want him too blown out. Sometimes you can also, you see these highlights on his fur, like right in here? You can lighten those up a little bit and give it a little contrast, make him look a little more interesting. And doing that, you can actually do it down here. Put another layer here. And put this fur. Okay, so make sure I've got this down, pass it down a little bit. You can come in here, lighten it up. Something like that. And then along his legs. maybe along his tail. And maybe up here. Maybe on the back of his arm here. Something like that. And so now it pops that up, makes it look more interesting. Is he looking a little yellow on your monitors?
Yes.
Okay, because he is on mine too, so I'm gonna go back and fix that too. Is that a little better? And sometimes desaturation helps too. Maybe something like that. You take them all the way out and they lose it completely. Maybe just like that, just a little bit like that. Okay. Then we grab the vignette. So I grab the circle here. Maybe start it right about here. Cover him in an oval. About like so. And then invert it. Grab curves. And pull it down. And what it does is that now it looks like he had some kind of special light on him, like maybe a reflector or a soft box or a soft light, or like it was some kind of studio lighting by vignetting the corners or by making a tight vignette. And yeah, if you go too far, of course, then it starts to look not so good. But you back it up a little bit, not overdo it. And now you've got kind of a spotlight on him. And there you are. Okay, so if you take this and then compare it with what it looked like before we did anything. Okay, this is after, and this is before. Actually, you still have the cropping in there. It doesn't take the cropping away because I did that in RAW. But there's the difference. And it's ready. So now you've got something that I think pops. You know, it sticks out. And the monkey looks like it always looks like a setup shot. It could have even been in a museum. But anyway, any questions on this one? Are we still awake?
Looks good, Tony.
Nobody's here. No, it looks good.
Okay.
Tony, would you size this one? Because I'm a little shaky on that part.
Okay, yeah. All right, so the first thing we do is we go to layers and compress them by flattening the image. So you flatten it. Then you go to image and you go to size. And so this is a vertical, so you would put in the height would be your 2160. Now the resolution should be 72, so you'd do that first, change that first to 72. Then you come up here to height and you make it 2160. And that way your width doesn't go beyond the 3840, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So there's that's your correct size for it. And then you click OK. And then the last thing what's that?
Why is the resolution 72 instead of 300?
Well, 300 is for printing. 72 doesn't matter when you project an image or see it on the internet or on your computer, because you can't see the resolution. It's invisible. So therefore, it can be any number. It can be 72, 96, 100, 200, whatever. But your file gets bigger. So there's no point in having a big, at 300, there's no point in having a big file size when there's no visual difference. You can't see the difference. So if you're going to print it, you save one version that's 300, and if you're going to use the other for internet and for critiquing and critique night and all that, put it at 72.
Okay,
And
thank
you
you.
got a smaller file. It uploads faster. It's just easier to handle. Of course, in this day. Now, one last thing I didn't do was sharpen it.
Yeah.
And to sharpen it, let's see. Let me get over here. You go to filter, sharpen, unsharp mask to put them on the eyes. So you can see here, if I click on this, there it is without the sharpening, there it is with the sharpening. It's very slight, so I could actually increase the sharpening a little bit, and maybe the radius just a hair. Sharpen, unsharpen. Okay, take the preview off. And now if you look at it close, you can see he's a lot sharper than he was. If I put the preview on this main picture here, the main one, he sharpens right up. If you take it off, he's a little soft. And he's sharper. And if you don't like that, well, sharpen it up a little more. And then now you've got, let me take the preview off. There he says unsharpened, it's not sharpened, and that is sharpened. So you can see it's a little crisper, a little better.
Great.
So there you go.
Hey, Tony, have you ever compared the Topaz sharpening tool versus the Photoshop sharpening function?
No, never have. No, not that I don't want to. It's just I never have. So I don't know what the Topaz sharpening tool is. Is that a something
We
you
had
can add to?
we had a workshop here not too long, or well, I guess it was last year, where they were talking about different Topaz filters and sharpening tools. One, masking, sharpening. What's the other one? There's another one as well, but the Topaz sharpening tool seems to work pretty well, but I don't know how it compares to the Photoshop sharpening tool.
Yeah, I don't know. The other sharpening tools are okay with Photoshop if you're in a quick hurry, you don't want to mess with it, but the unsharp mask, I've always felt has been the overall best sharpening tool in Photoshop. So anyway, so there's that image. What time have we got here? Okay, it's 9:10. So let me close this one up. Now, let's see, the next one. This one will be pretty straightforward. Okay. This is a Baltimore Oriole, and they're pretty common down here. And this is a feeder tree that Celeste and I set up to attract birds so we can take pictures of them. And so this one landed, he's eyeballing some bananas sitting on a little tray about maybe 3 feet below where he's sitting. But anyway, I got this image. I shot it with a 500mm lens. And if you'll notice, it's a little on the soft side. And that's as tight as I could get on him because I was far enough back, I couldn't get any tighter. So that's the way it was shot. And, but how do I make it better? I mean, it's an okay picture, but it's not, hasn't got a lot of dramatic punch to it. So the first thing to do is to crop it. So I take the image. Again, I shot this in RAW. But to me, this is a vertical for sure. Something along this line. Since the picture's about the bird, the rest of the branch, I guess, isn't all that important. And also, if you'll notice, he's a little bit, his head is kind of like tilted to the left a little bit. And I thought, well, gee, maybe I had to straighten his head up a little bit. So I rotated a little bit like this. And that straightens his head up. You can use grids and that kind of thing to do the same thing, but something along that line seemed to work. And then the temperature is at 51. I could probably put it at 55. It warms it up just a little bit. If I go the other way, it cools it. It's kind of cool. But 55 is good. And the exposure, I think, is okay. It's all right. So you just leave that alone. Contrast. I could use a little bit of contrast. The highlights. Well, the branch has got all these white spots on it, and the branch is kind of washed out looking. So if you take the highlights and dial it down, it should bring the branch right in. Make it a little bit more interesting. The shadows, and keep that about the same. Blacks. Clarity. Kind of buffs it up a little bit. Vibrance gives it a little more color to it. But you don't want to overdo it because it'll, kill it if you put too much saturation. Okay, then let's open the image. And this one, really the only thing that needs to be done to it is, you see the catch light in the bird's eye?
Mhm.
Go in there and brighten that up a little bit. So if I add a layer here, oops, and call it catch light or catch. And get my brush. Okay, and let's see if I can lighten it up just a little bit right here. Not a big difference, but okay, the cloning, I want to take these little spots out. So another layer, clone. You can use the healing tool too for this if you want. It's really not that big a deal. I think you'll pass the 100% when you use the clone usually. Oops, a little spot there. Still got a spot. Maybe I better grab it right alongside it. Yeah, it's better. Okay, and anywhere else there's imperfections. And that's what I did on that frog picture that got the grand champion at the fair. There was a lot of little imperfections on his skin. It looked like he had been attacked by a predator. And so he had a big scratch across him. And so I had to take that out. Because whenever you put animals like this, especially if they're really colorful and pretty, you want them to be perfect specimens. Okay. I'm going to put a burn and dodge layer. sometimes the overlay is a good option instead of just using soft light. But soft light is pretty good for most of it. Okay, and I get the brush, and I'm going to burn. His legs here. Oops. Okay. There, so there's a little bit more color to his legs. And if I want to do a little bit to this tree here, I can do that as well. And it seems like Photoshop's pretty forgiving. I mean, you can select these, like select the tree and then do this with it, and then you don't have to be quite as careful. But I think if you take your time somewhat, you don't need to put the select or use it. Okay, so there we have that. And then I haven't done any contrast with this because I think adding a little snap to it. I like to use levels. Something like that. And then vignetting. There you go. Now, one of the things that you might want to do is maybe clone out this area right in here and fill it in with the rest of the pattern of the branch because it is a little bit of a distraction. And if I wanted to spend more time on this, I could do that, but I think you got the idea. And then again, resize it and save it as a JPEG, sharpen it, and you're off and running. Any questions? So it went, well, let me go back one thing here. This is before, and then after.
Looks good, Tony.
It does.
Nicely done.
Does that work?
Very
Yeah.
good.
Okay, again, it looks like there's a spotlight on him, like there's a, like somehow the lighting was just happened to fall right on him when I took the picture. Like, how do you get so lucky getting all that great lighting? Well, that's all it is vignetting and fooling around with that until you get it the way you want it. You know, it's not a big deal. It's really pretty simple. And of course, sharpening would make this, because this lens, and Greg you borrowed this lens from him. Remember, Greg, when we were in Costa Rica, you used that 500 millimeter lens?
Is that what this is? Is that the 500 millimeter?
That's the 500, right? It's the same one.
Nice.
And it's just a little on the soft side, but the sharpening tool really snaps it right up and
It does. It's a very nice picture.
and makes it. And I didn't sharpen this yet, but it's a little soft if you look at it closely.
Mhm.
It's not the way it should be. Okay, one last thing I wanted to do here, just for fun.
Where's Celeste tonight?
She's asleep. She had a pretty big day today with some friends of hers hiking around and whatever. So she's conked.
What time is it there, Tony?
It's actually it's 9:20.
Just 1 hour difference. Okay.
1 hour difference. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me grab this next image. Let's see here. Okay, this one I did a long time ago in Camera Club, but it got a lot of attention. The subject of the month was graveyards, I think, or tombstones, or something like that. And so I got this image over in oh gosh, I'm trying to think. It's out near the Palouse. It's an old graveyard. It's all kind of grown over, and everything. Of course, in the wintertime, this was taken in the wintertime. Everything was just dead, and I was able to capture this image, but not as you see it. I mean, it looks like something right out of Halloween, and what I wanted to show you is that, by the way, everything that I'm doing here, if you go to YouTube, and I think I might have mentioned this earlier, there's a gazillion tutorials for Photoshop to tell you how to do this kind of stuff. If you want to do it, if you want to do a composite, because this is a composite image. If you want to, buff this up or take this out or do some of the things that I did, it's all there in it's all there in YouTube. You just type in what it is you're looking for and then type the word Photoshop tutorial or something along that line, and a whole slew of videos will come up to show you exactly step by step how to do it. Because I didn't just, spend painstaking hours trying to figure this stuff out. I just watched a tutorial and went, oh, that's how they do that. Okay. And Steve, I think you kind of did the same thing with your logo that you created. Looks like 20th Century Fox. Didn't you go look at a tutorial as to how to do that?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Hey,
mean,
Tony, where's your picture where it's a graveyard with Linnea holding the flashlight?
Oh, that one? I don't have that available right now. I didn't put it on this
my
computer.
Favorite picture you've ever taken.
I want to know.
Oh, go ahead.
I want to know why there isn't a witch on a broom riding over that moon,
Yeah. I thought about that too. Create the whole scene. Anyway, let me show you here how I did this. I mean, quickly. I'm going to start with, let's see here. I'm going to remove everything that I did, and then I'm going to show you how I did it. I've got a bunch of layers here, just a ton of them.
It's gorgeous.
Okay, that's what I started with.
Oh, my Lord.
That's the original photograph.
That's good.
Okay, yeah, and I took this at about, it's the dead of winter. I took it at about, I'm going to say 4 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe a little earlier than that because, the sun sets pretty quick in the wintertime. So, but I got it at about 4, and these 2 grave markers were there. So then what I did is, I created a layer and I eliminated the upper half of those 2 grave markers because I didn't want it to interfere with the trees, with the trees up in this area. I didn't want it to interfere here and here. I wanted these left free. So I just cloned them out. I created a duplicate copy and then not cloned them, but erased them out and then left the copy behind it. Then, let's see here. I darkened the whole shot. just brought it down using levels, or I used levels, or it was the other one. I can't think of the name of it right offhand. But anyway, I just darkened the whole scene. And then these tombstones were put in its place. The ones that were there I took out, and I put these there. So these were just cloned in. I cut them out from another shot and put them here into this field. Then I added the moon. And this was a shot that I took, I don't know when I took it. It was some other time where there was a full moon outside the house, and I thought, oh, that's a cool shot. And I grabbed a shot of the moon. Now, the moon did not have the clouds in front of it. The clouds were just cloned from the clouds that are right around it. These clouds in here, I just grabbed some, cloned them, and then draped them across part of the moon, and then made them more transparent. So it looks like the moon shining through them. Then I added another grave marker, this little one here. And then I did some burning and dodging to give it some three-dimensional, lighting look on them. So it looked like the directional light's coming from the right, just by dodging out some of the light on the grave markers. Then I added a light cloud. I took some of the cloud up above and just lightened it up a little bit to make it look like the moon was affecting this somehow. Then I decided to put in some ground fog. And I didn't know how to do this, so I just went on tutorial and said, Photoshop ground fog tutorial. And it showed me how to do this. So I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. So I made a layer for that. And then I decided I wanted some more fog. So I made another layer and put in some more fog, but not quite as dark or not quite as dense. And then I did it again. I put in another grave marker. Only this time, I think this grave marker blocked the one in the back. So I thought, I don't care. I like this grave marker better. So I just left this again. This has its own layer with this one grave marker. So I cut it out and stuck it in there because it was in another shot that I took at the same graveyard. So you can take your images and start pulling things from them and creating your own scene. Then I put some more fog in to kind of cover this one. And I put some more fog in the background over here. And then I adjusted the contrast and the brightness a little bit. And I decided to give it kind of a bluish tone to it because, this doesn't quite look like nighttime. So I put in a little bit of a blue tone to it to look like the moon. And it looked like moonlight or some kind of light coming in that would do that. And then I vignetted the corners. And, kind of gave it more contrast so that the clouds would show up or the fog would show up. And then the last one here, I put in a grave marker's face. If you'll see here, the grave marker that's in the foreground, this area right in here, okay, I took a face off another grave marker and stuck it there and blended it in. So that's the image. And the title of this was Dearly Departed. But I probably had more fun doing this one than any of the other ones. And the one that Donna pointed out where I had my two kids in there as gumshoes with flashlights looking at the grave markers. And it looks like it's midnight and they're looking at the grave markers trying to figure out what's going on, and there's some ghosts in the background. But anyway, so just to show you what you can do with Photoshop and with layers and with tutorials, you can learn to do all of this. It's not hard. You just have to have the time to be able to sit down and follow the instructions. I can't remember exactly how I did this other than in generalities because there's a lot of little details to it. Any questions?
That is awesome, Tony. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tony, when you did the one with Linnea and Brian, I remember you had like a ghost or something on a tombstone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, that was the coolest thing. The flashlight shining on that's my favorite shot you've ever done. Wish you had that here to show everybody.
Yeah, I was thinking about that one, but I thought, well, this one had more going on in it. That's why I chose this one. But yeah.
Cool.
So there you have it. Now you know why I'm so hard on people in the judging and the scoring.
Yeah.
How would you explain that exactly?
Explain what?
Why you're so hard on people?
Oh. Well, I look at images the way I would do them. And I guess that's true with every critiquer. They do the same. They look at an image and they go, well, this was my image. This is what I would do. And I would take this out and add this and put this here and darken that and lighten that to create more drama. And if it looks like just a point and shoot image, it's hard to say a lot of good things about it other than, well, it's a picture, it's a snapshot, but that's all it is. And I know that, what's that?
Nothing. Sorry about that.
Okay, and that's why I know that most of the camera club members want to take their imaging to the next level. They want to do better than just, point and shoot pictures. And paying attention to the backgrounds, paying attention to hotspots, paying attention. I mean, composition, you can fix it, in Photoshop or any imaging software program, but all of the different things that you can do, there's so much that these software programs give you that you're almost without an excuse, except that unless, of course, you don't have time to learn how to do some of the things that need to be done. But if you listen to the critiquers enough in the, on print night or digital image night and do some of the suggestions, you'll find your imaging getting better. And this happened with me because I started with the Camera Club, I think in 2000 or 2001. I know Donna started 10 years before I did. And when you were telling me, Donna, that when you started, you didn't know much about photography. You were kind of picking some of the ideas up from your dad, but you were
I never
paying
heard of
attention.
the word aperture. I didn't know what a polarizer was. And I was too embarrassed to raise my hand and go, what's aperture?
Yeah.
Remember, Tony, when you entered that picture, I go, Tony, do not tell them how you did that picture where you had the 3 planes in the sky. Remember the fighter planes? I said, don't tell them. I said, everybody's going to go berserk because not that many people were doing Photoshop then. Then someone asked and you told them, and it's like, oh, and then the whole club went berserk. Like, that's not fair. We don't want to have to compete with someone who's better at the computer than I am. And, oh my gosh.
Yeah. But I think it's all about stretching ourselves, right? Isn't that what we want to do and get better at what we do? And because I've been in photography for 50 years now, and Photoshop since 2000. That's when I started using Photoshop. And most of this dearly departed image, I did that when I think I'd only been doing Photoshop a year. Not very long. So it's not rocket science. It's just doing it. It's just taking the time to read, study the tutorials and do what they say. And then you'll finish the picture and you go, wow, that's great. But how did I do that?
I think you do have to keep in practice. I mean, there are lots of images that I've done before that I don't know how I did it. And I really have to figure it out again.
Yeah. I mean, to do this again, I'd have to go to look at the tutorial because I don't remember. It's been too long. It's probably been 15 years, I guess, since I did that.
Well, thank you very much, Tony. It was
You're
very
welcome.
educational, very entertaining also.
Oh, good. I wasn't too boring.
No.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Okay.
We're talking about stuff we want to know
And, well, go ahead.
and showing us good examples. So it's great.
Excellent. And anytime anybody wants to come down to Costa Rica and take some great wildlife and scenic stuff, this is the place to do it.
Yeah.
Like what's right behind me here.
It's a fun trip. If anyone hasn't done it, it's a wonderful trip. And Tony and Celeste are wonderful hosts.
Yeah.
I only remember Jan complaining about the bugs.
Yeah, well, you do.
Bugs in Spokane, you know. I mean,
Yeah, there's the no-see-ums, you know, at dusk. These little tiny flea-like bugs. They're smaller than fleas, but they bite you. You know, they jump on your legs and bite. So it's like mosquitoes kind of, but they're much tinier.
mm-hmm.
But apart from that, we only get bugs here that are really a nuisance in May. May is the bug month. It's the beetle month. They come out of the ground.
Oh.
There's all kinds of them. And if you have your
What
lights
month,
on
Greg,
and your
did you go? Greg,
what's
what month?
that?
Greg, what?
May. May is the bug month. May is the beetle month.
When did we go, Jan? We don't remember. Jan just came back and joined me, so she hasn't been in part of this, but she can't remember either. It was a very good month whenever it was, and the beach was fabulous. And the
Oh, we went in January.
January.
I thought it was January, but I could be wrong. Pretty sure though.
Yeah, you guys got the grand tour. You guys went everywhere.
Yes, we did.
And so did Don and Steve. You were down here for how long? Like 2-3 weeks?
3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Remember
Yeah.
the click beetle out on your patio?
Yes, yes.
We thought, what is that thing? I mean, tell them what a click beetle is, because I'd never seen anything like it.
You're talking about the one that had the fluorescent body?
That has the 2 headlights on it.
Yeah, the 2 headlights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look like a little car.
It looked like a little car. I mean, 2 headlights. And all of a sudden we saw something in the patio and we thought, what is that?
It was moving along the ground, these 2 little lights. Yeah.
It looked just like a car with headlights.
And I haven't seen one since.
That was weird. I didn't think the bugs were bad when we were there. I think we were there in February. They weren't bad at all.
No.
bugs were not bad when we were there. Dora, you were there with us. I mean, you didn't.
No, I didn't. I didn't find the bugs a problem at all.
We turned it into a fun thing. Steve, your husband, was the bugologist. I mean, we were out there with our flashlights in the middle of the night searching for bugs to take pictures of. It was hilarious.
Yeah, we found the hermit crabs instead. Remember those?
Exactly.
Oh, those were fun. Yeah, I like those.
There was a gazillion of hermit crabs, and from little ones to stuff that were in big shells. They're crawling along the beach, and they're all over the place at night. Yeah.
Yeah. Fun.
Amazing. Yep.
Fun time.
Well,
It
again,
is a
thank you,
photographer's
Tony.
paradise.
It is.
I'm going to bow out because I have to do some more stuff, but you guys keep chatting if you want.
Yep.
And,
Thank you, Tony, very much.
Tony, you're welcome.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
Thank you so much. You did
Good
a
night.
great job.
Good night.
And for any of you who wonder, that this will be up on YouTube tomorrow. So if you want to look at it again to review what you learned, it'll be there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tony.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm signing off.